All right, bootstraps are buckled, ready to pick up in 2 Kings chapter 11 today. All right, so yesterday in chapter 10, Jehu died and his son Jehoahaz became king in his place. Verse 1 here. When Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she rose and destroyed all the royal offspring. All right, for clarification, there are two kings named Ahaziah in the Bible. One ruled in the northern kingdom of Israel, and the other in the southern kingdom of Judah. This Ahaziah in our chapter today was the one who was king over Judah, and his mom was the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel. His uncle, also named Ahaziah, was their son. Neither one of them was any good. And Judah's Ahaziah's mom here, Athaliah, killed off all her grandchildren after her husband Jehoram and her son Ahaziah died. This was an attempt to destroy the Davidic line and obviously motivated by Satan with the end goal of eliminating the bloodline of Christ. It's very confusing with two Jehorams and two Ahaziahs in the same book. All right, moving on, verse 2. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Joram, sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, so would have been her nephew, and stole him from among the king's sons who were being put to death, and placed him and his nurse in the bedroom. So they hid him from Athaliah, and he was not put to death. So he was hidden with her in the house of the Lord 6 years, while Athaliah was reigning over the land. So protected in the house of the Lord, bloodline of David. Coincidence? I think not. God is sovereign and has his plan. And another thought just came to mind. Remember back in 1 Samuel chapter 8, how Israel demanded a king, and Samuel tried to tell them that God was their king? Well, they're getting what they asked for, that's for sure. All right, picking up in verse 4. Now in the 7th year, Jehoiada sent and brought the captains of hundreds of the Kerites and of the guard, and brought them to him in the house of the Lord. Then he made a covenant with them and put them under oath in the house of the Lord, and showed them the king's son. All right, we're going to pause here. Jehoiada was a priest and was married to Jehosheba, who just rescued her nephew. And yes, nowhere in the Bible does it say that priests cannot marry. On another note, the role of the priest went away when the new covenant was ushered in the moment that Christ died. You will not find priests in their Old Testament role throughout the remainder of the New Testament because there was nothing left to sacrifice. The final sacrificial lamb went to heaven, which is why the temple veil split. But please note here that priests in the Old Testament were allowed to marry. Now, in the New Testament, the Bible does teach that celibacy for church leaders is encouraged so one can focus solely on Christ. But super important caveat, this would only apply if the individual has no desire to marry. If there is desire, numerous scripture passages encourage them to get married, even church leaders. Look at 1 Timothy chapter 4, where it says that in the latter days, people will turn to doctrines of demons, and men will forbid marriage and obtain from certain foods. Look at all the problems this has caused in the Catholic Church with homosexuality and pedophilia. The Bible itself says that it's not from God and is a doctrine of demons to discourage someone from being married. So pay attention, folks. Go straight from the source of God and not from traditions of men. All right, and Kerites, by the way, mentioned in verse 4 here, were mercenary soldiers who served as royal bodyguards. He, Jehoiada the priest, commanded them, saying, "This is the thing you shall do. 1/3 of you who come in on the Sabbath and keep watch over the king's house, 1/3 also shall be at the gate, sir, and 1/3 at the gate behind the guards, shall keep watch over the house for defense. 2 parts of you, even all who go out on the Sabbath, shall also keep watch over the house of the Lord for the king. Then you shall surround the king, each with his weapons in his hand, and whoever comes within the ranks shall be put to death. And be with the king when he goes out and when he comes in." So the captains of hundreds did according to all that Jehoiada the priest commanded. And each one of them took his men who were to come in on the Sabbath with those who were to go out on the Sabbath, and came to Jehoiada the priest. So God is definitely at work here. The priest gave to the captains of hundreds the spears and shields that had been King David's, which were in the house of the Lord. The guards stood, each with his weapons in his hand, from the right side of the house to the left side of the house, by the altar and by the house around the king. Then he brought the king's son out, So this was Joash, who they delivered from the wicked grandmother, and put the crown on him and gave him the testimony. And they made him king and anointed him. And they clapped their hands and said, "Long live the king." When Athaliah, the wicked grandma, heard the noise of the guard and of the people, she came to the people in the house of the Lord. She looked, and behold, the king was standing by the pillar, according to the custom, with the captains and the trumpeters beside the king. And all the people of the land rejoiced and blew trumpets, and hopefully right in her ear. Then Athaliah tore her clothes and cried, "Treason, treason." And Jehoiada the priest commanded the captains of hundreds who were appointed over the army, and said to them, "Bring her out between the ranks, and whoever follows her, put to death with the sword." For the priest said, "Let her not be put to death in the house of the Lord." So they seized her, and when she arrived at the horses' entrance of the king's house, she was put to death there. Then Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord and the king and the people, that they would be the Lord's people, also between the king and the people. All the people of the land went to the house of Baal and tore it down. His altars and his images they broke in pieces thoroughly, and killed Matan, the priest of Baal, before the altars. And the priest appointed officers over the house of the Lord. So back in good standing for now. He took the captains of hundreds and the Kerites, or mercenary bodyguards, and the guards and all the people of the land, and they brought the king down from the house of the Lord, and came by the way of the gate of the guards to the king's house. And he sat on the throne of the kings. So all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet, for they had put Athaliah to death with the sword at the king's house. Jehoash, it's the same Joash, the rescued grandson, they like to confuse people back in the day, was 7 years old when he became king. And I'm guessing he had some advisors. Well, Jezebel, Athaliah, nothing but wicked ladies. And you know what? It did not end well for them. God's got a lot of people today who feel the same way about him as these gals did. And let us put them in our prayer list, because the wrath of God is something we should not wish upon even our worst enemy. So let's keep praying for those who hate and oppose God, because God can do amazing things, and as we all know. All right, you guys, thank you for being here. Have a great day. God bless you.